Chapter 5 They had been gone from home for 3 days now. Claudia insisted on a fresh change of underwear every day. That was the way she had been brought up. She insisted for Jamie too, no question about it. Their laundry was becoming a problem. They had to get to a laundromat. That night they removed all their dirty clothes from their instrument cases and stuffed those that would fit into various pockets. Those that didn't fit, they wore. A double layer of clothes never hurts anyone in winter as long as the clean ones are worn closest to the skin. Saturday seemed a good day for housekeeping chores. There would be no school groups for them to join. Claudia suggested that they eat both meals outside the museum. Jamie agreed. Claudia next suggested a real sit-down restaurant with tablecloths on the tables and waiters to serve you. Jamie said no with such force that Claudia didn't try to persuade him. From breakfast at the automat they went to laundry at the laundromat. They emptied their pockets of underwear and removed the layer of soiled socks. No one stared. Someone before them had probably done the same thing sometime that week. They bought soap from a machine for 10 cents and deposited a quarter into the slot in the washer. Through the glass in the door they watched their assorted clothing spill and splash over and over and round and round. Drying cost 10 cents for 10 minutes, but it took 20 cents worth of minutes to dry everything. When all was done, they were disappointed. All of it looked dismally gray, very unelegant. Claudia had thought that their white underwear should not have been washed with the red and navy blue socks, but she would not have considered asking for more money for anything as unglamorous as dirty socks. Oh well, she mourned, at least they smell clean. Jamie said, let's go to the TV department of Bloomingdale's and watch TV. Not today. We are got to work on the mystery of the statue all morning tomorrow, because tomorrow the museum doesn't open until 1 o'clock. Today we must learn all about the Renaissance and Michelangelo to prepare ourselves. We will do research at the big library at 42nd Street. How about the TV department of Mercy's instead? To the library, Sir James. Gimble's library. They packed their gray-looking laundry back into their pockets and walked to the door of the laundromat. At the door, Claudia turned to Jamie and asked, Can we? Jamie didn't let her finish. No, dear Lady Claudia, we have not the funds for taxis, buses, or subways. Shall we walk? He extended his arm. Claudia placed her gloved fingertips on top of Jamie's mittened ones. Thus they began their long walk to the library. Once there, they asked the lady at the information booth where they could find books on Michelangelo. She directed them first to the children's room, but when the librarian there found out what they wanted to know, she advised them to go to the Donald Branch Library on 53rd Street. Jamie hoped this would discourage Claudia, but it didn't. She didn't even seem to mind backtracking up Fifth Avenue. Her determination convinced Jamie that Saturday should be spent just this way. Once at the library, they examined the directory which told what was available where and when the library was open. In the doorstairs art room, the librarian helped them find the books which Claudia selected from the card catalogue. She even brought them some others. Claudia liked that part. She always enjoyed being waited on. Claudia began her studies, never doubting that she could become an authority that morning. She had neither pencil nor paper to make notes, and she knew she wouldn't have a lot of time to read, so she decided that she would simply remember everything. Absolutely everything she read. Her net profit, therefore, would be as great as that of someone who read a great deal but remembered very little. Claudia showed the executive ability of a corporation president. She assigned to Jamie the task of looking through the books of photographs of Michelangelo's work to find pictures of Angel. She would do the reading. She glanced through several thick books with thin pages and tiny print. After reading 12 pages, She looked to the end to see how many more pages there were to go, more than 200. The book also had footnotes. She read a few more pages and then busied herself with studying some of Jamie's picture books. You were supposed to do the reading. I'm just using these pictures for relief, Claudia whispered. I have to rest my eyes sometime. Well, I don't see any pictures that look like the statue, Jamie sighed. Keep looking, I will do some more reading. A few minutes later, Jamie interrupted her. Here he is, he said. That doesn't look anything like the statue. That's not even a girl, Claudia said. Of course not. That's Michelangelo himself. Claudia replied, I knew that. 2 minutes ago you didn't. You thought I was showing you a picture of the statue. Oh, well, there's his broken nose. She pointed to the nose in the picture. He got in a fight and had his nose broken when he was a teenager. Was he a juvenile delinquent? Delinquent? Maybe they do have his fingerprints on file. No, silly, Claudia said. He was a hot-tempered genius. Did you know he was famous even when he was alive? Is that so? I thought that artists don't become famous until after they are dead, like mummies. They studied a while longer before Jamie's next interruption. You know, a lot of his works were lost. They say lost in parentheses under the picture. How can that be? A statue isn't something like an umbrella that you leave in a taxi and lose. That is, those people who actually write taxes, something you wouldn't know about. Well, they weren't lost in taxes, they were lost track of. What kind of a sentence is that? Lost track of? Oh, Bellamy, there are whole long books about the lost works of Michelangelo, picture works and sculptor works that people lost track of. Claudia softened. Is the little angel one of them? What's the difference between an angel and a cupid? Jamie inquired. Why? Claudia asked. Because there's a lost cupid for sure. Angels wear clothes and wings and are Christian. Cupids wear bows and arrows. They are naked and pagan. What's pagan? Jamie asked. Boy or girl? How would I know? Claudia answered. You said they are naked. Well, pagan has nothing to do with that. It means worshipping idols instead of God. Oh, Jamie nodded. The statue in the museum is an angel. It's dressed in it altogether. I don't know yet if an angel was lost. Then he glanced over at his sister and muttered, Chekhov. Claudia had begun her research confident that a morning study would make her completely an expert, but Michelangelo had humbled her, and humanity was not an emotion with which she felt comfortable. She was irritable. Jamie ended his research where Claudia had begun, very confident and happy. He felt that his morning had been well spent. He had seen a lot of pictures, and he had learned about Pagan. He leaned back and yawned. He was becoming bored with pictures of David and Moses and the assistant sailing. He wanted to find clues. Already, he knew enough to tell if Michelangelo had sculptured a little angel. All he needed was a chance to investigate. Without the guards hurrying him, he would know. But would his opinion be accepted by the experts? I think we should find out how the experts decide whether or not the statue belongs to Michelangelo. That will be better than finding out about Michelangelo himself, Jamie said. I know how they find out. They gathered evidence like sketches he did and diaries and records of sales, and they examined the statue to see what kind of tools were used and how they were used. Like no one living in the 15th century would use an electric drill. How come you didn't take art appreciation lessons with me? The summer before last? Yes, before school started. Well, the summer before last, I had just finished the second half of first grade. So what? So, Bellamy, it was all I could do to sound out the name of Dick and Jane's dog. Claudia had no answer for Jamie's logic. Besides, Jamie agreed with her. I guess it is better to look for clues. After all, we are doing something that none of the experts can do. Claudia's impatience surfaced. She had to pick a fight with Jamie. Don't be silly. They can read all this stuff too. There's certainly plenty of it. Oh, I don't mean that. I mean that we're living with the statue. You know what they always say? The only two ways to get to know someone are to live with him or play cards with him. Well, at least the little statue can't cheat at cards like someone else I know. Claudia, dear, I'm no angel, statue or otherwise. Claudia sighed. Okay, Sir James, let's go, and they did. As they were walking up the steps, Jamie spied a Hershey's almond bar still in its wrapper lying in a corner of the landing. He picked it up and tore open one corner. Was it bitten into? Asked Claudia. No, Jamie smiled. Won't have? You better not touch it, Claudia warned. It's probably poisoned or filled with marijuana, so you will eat it and become either dead or a dope addict. Jamie was irritated. Couldn't it just happen that someone dropped it? I doubt that. Who would drop a whole candy bar and not know it? That's like leaving a statue in a taxi. Someone put it there on purpose. Someone who pushes dope. I read once that they feed dope in chocolates to little kids and then the kids become dope addicts. Then these people sell them dope at very high prices, which they just can't help but buy because when you are addicted, you have to have your dope. High prices and all. And Jamie, we don't have that kind of money. Jamie said, Oh, well, bottoms up. He took a big bite of the candy, chewed and swallowed. Then he closed his eyes, leaned against the wall, and slid to the floor. Claudia stood with her mouth open, stunned. She was on the verge of screaming for help when Jamie opened his eyes and smiled. It's delicious. Want a bite? Claudia not only refused to bite, he also refused to talk to Jamie until they got to the restaurant. Lunch cheered her. She suggested that they play in Central Park for a while, and they did. They bought peanuts, chestnuts, and pretzels from the vendor outside the museum. They knew that since the museum opened late on Sunday, they would accumulate a lot of hunger before they got out. Their bulging pockets were now full of the staples of life, food and clothing. Jamie entered the men's room. He had arrived, as was his custom, shortly before the first bell rang, the bell that warned everyone that the museum would close in 5 minutes. He waited. The bell rang. He got into a booth. First bell, second bell. It was routine, just as boarding the school bus had once been routine. After the first day, they had learned that the staff worked from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., a work schedule just like their fathers. Routine, routine. They wait from 9 when they wait from 9 when the staff came until 10 when the public came seemed long. Claudia and Jamie had decided that the washrooms were good for the shorter evening wait when the help left at the same time as the visitors, but the washrooms were less satisfactory for the long morning wait, especially after Jamie's close call that first morning. So, time for 8:45 until some safe time after 10 in the mornings was spent under various beds. They always checked for dust under the beds first, and for once Claudia's fuzziness was not the reason. Reason was the reason. A dustless floor meant that it had been cleaned very recently, and they stood less chance of being caught by a mop. Jamie stood on the toilet seat waiting. He leaned his head against the wall of the booth and braced himself for what would happen next. The guard would come in and make a quick check of his station. Jamie still felt a pain during that short inspection. That was the only part that still wasn't quite routine, and that's why he braced himself. Then the lights would be turned out. Jamie would wait 12 minutes. Lag time, Claudia called it, and emerged from hiding. Except the guard didn't come, and Jamie couldn't relax until after he felt that final pin. And the light stayed on, stayed on. Jamie checked his watch 10 times within 5 minutes. He shook his arm and held the watch up to his ear. It was ticking, slower than his heart and much more softly. What was wrong? They had caught Claudia. Now they would look for him. He'd pretend he didn't speak English. He wouldn't answer any questions. Then he heard the door open. Footsteps, more footsteps than usual. What was happening?